Hello, my name is Callie Smith. I have selected the social penetration theory for my research project here in COMS 520 with Dr. Kelly. I have also chosen to kind of relate the social penetration theory to social media and how the effects of social media are affecting our interpersonal communication and therefore our relationships altogether. So to get started, we'll just go over a brief history of the social penetration theory. The social penetration theory was established by Irwin Altman and Dalmas Taylor, who were two sociologists, around 1973. And it really was an attempt to better explain relationships in terms of how they are developed through the disclosure of information in a relationship among individuals. So just to consider, it's helpful to consider the relationships that you're in right now. The way that you communicate with your friends may be different from the way that you communicate with your spouse or your parents or your cousins or even your boss and your coworkers. Just think about one thing that I like to consider is if you go out to dinner, you're in a restaurant with a lot of people, you may be having dinner with your friends. And you guys are just discussing, what's going on with each other and each other's lives. And the people next to you may be a married couple who's discussing, finances, their children, their family as a whole. Some more serious things. And on the other side, you may have a couple who's on their first date and they're exchanging just very basic information, just trying to get to know each other after their, initial meeting. This theory, the social penetration theory, is also called the onion theory. And it's something that sounds kind of goofy at first, but it makes a whole lot of sense when you really think about it. Onions have layers, and you have to peel back those layers to get, down to the really good part of the onion to really understand about other people. So people are onions. And another way to think about it is they're spheres, and you have different layers of the sphere. And on the outermost layers of your sphere, you have the information that's immediately noticeable that tells someone else a little bit about you. So just based off, if I were to look at someone really quick, I could tell just by looking at them, where they're from, their hair color, their skin color. Maybe hearing them talk might give me a good idea about where they're from, where they grew up. So those are the outermost layers, and the innermost layers, they're kind of your secrets, the things that you don't really reveal to other people unless you're close to them or you've developed a relationship with them. Something kind of fun to think about is the movie Shrek, which I'm sure we've all seen, but there's a part in the movie where Shrek and Donkey are walking and talking, and Donkey said, "I don't understand about ogres," and Shrek says, "Well, ogres are like onions. You have to peel back our layers to find out more about us. You can't really judge a book by its cover. You have to peel back the layers of an ogre to see who they really are." And that's so true for people too. We have to really kind of get to know them, and the way that you get to know someone, as suggested by Altman and Taylor, is through communication and through the disclosure and dissemination of information about yourself. Initially, when Altman and Taylor developed their theory, they came up with 4 phases that they felt really gave a good idea about what and how relationships were formed and maintained. Later on, sociologists and other communication theorists came up with a 5th stage that they felt really summed up the end of relationships as a whole. So there are 4 phases: the orientation, the exploratory affective, the affective exchange phase, and the stable stage. And then the 5th one is the depenetration phase. The orientation phase is the initial meeting, where you're just exchanging basic information, nothing deep, just where you're getting to know one another, maybe for the first or second meeting, the first, second time you're around someone. The exploratory affective stage is where the friendships begin to take form, where you might start sharing more intimate information that maybe you don't share with everybody, but you're kind of exploring the idea that you want to be friends with someone. You may want to develop a relationship with someone, so you might share more information to disclose that about yourself to see what they think about it. The affective exchange phase is oftentimes where romantic relationships form. They also call this phase the evaluation phase, where you're really learning more about a person to the point that you are able to say, okay, I've learned this about them. Do I like this? Do I dislike this? Do I want to pursue a relationship? How do you kind of want to weigh that out? The stable phase is where the two participating individuals are comfortable with each other. They've got an established friendship. They're maintaining it. Things are going well. They are at a comfortable level with one another. Finally, the deep penetration phase is a lot of times the end of the relationship. It could mean the end of a romantic relationship, the end of a friendship. It's where an individual may identify something about another individual that they dislike or that they feel is not something that they're really interested in pursuing about that relationship anymore. So Altman and Taylor also suggested that these stages can occur in two different ways. They can occur cyclically or linearly. And linearly means just that those phases occur one after the other in chronological order and kind of the way that they're supposed to happen. A cyclical relationship is one that some theorists have deemed like an unhealthy relationship, where it just keeps happening over and over again. And for this, you might consider a romantic relationship where they, go through the initial meeting, they've developed a friendship, they're in a romantic relationship, they're comfortable, they're stable, and then they break up. Something happens and they break up. But then they get back together and the whole cycle goes over again, and it may happen more than one or two times. That is a cyclical form of the relationship. So we also want to consider, so how does social media play into all of this? And social media comes into this in that it is a big part of our society and our culture today. I don't know many people that don't utilize some form of social media, at least in their everyday activities, at least at one point or another. And it influences communication. It influences the way we interact with others and the way we form what's called internet relationships. Just a quick look at social media. Facebook was formed in 2004, as we know, by Mark Zuckerberg at Harvard. It started off just as a campus-wide thing, and it exploded. They've now got over 1.2 billion daily users of Facebook. Twitter was established in 2006 by Jack Dorsey, and it's a form of microblogging where you use 140 characters to disseminate and disperse your ideas. And Pinterest, Instagram, other things like that have sort of followed. They've got kind of their own thing going, but it's all social media. It's all interacting with others on the internet. Sociologist Paul DiMaggio suggested that in order to explore the negative effects that social media has on us, it's important, as with any situation, to explore that it has positive attributes as well. He suggested that it is convenient. We know that. That it unifies and brings people together. It unifies people for a cause. We've seen this happen so many times, people raising funds for others, raising support for other people via social media. And it allows us to share things with others that we may not get to share. We may not get another platform opportunity like that to share that information with others. But according to Small Business Insider writer Brian Jung, there are a lot of negative attributes that can come from Facebook as well that really affect negatively our social interaction. And the first one is that it diminishes our grammar skills, the use of memes, other things like we're using acronyms, abbreviations, emojis to express our ideas. Probably not giving us the best practice for utilizing our good grammar skills that we've all learned in school. It discourages less face-to-face activity with others, and it diminishes our interpersonal communication skills as a result of that. You're not putting into practice talking to someone face-to-face, so you're not utilizing that, and you're not keeping up appearances in that sense. It also gives you a decreased sense of boundary, and what that means is that people are more likely to share information on Facebook than they would probably, they wouldn't go up to someone and whip out a picture of their kids and be like, hey, these are my kids at the grocery store to someone, to a stranger. They would probably be more likely to share that information on Facebook or any social media than they would in person. And along those same lines, it gives us a false sense of security. Studies have suggested that people are far more likely to engage in a confrontation on Facebook while hiding behind the security of a computer screen than they are to actually engage in a confrontation with someone face to face. So, how does it affect our interpersonal relationships? Ultimately, it really inhibits our individual assessment of cost versus rewards, and that's really a socioeconomic idea that goes along with social penetration theory, and that we put into a relationship what we think we're going to get out. The cost of what we're going to put into a relationship has to be equal or less of what we're going to get back. So it also diminishes our social abilities to the point that a lot of people are now incapable of engaging in interpersonal communication and interpersonal face-to-face activities. So just to leave you guys with a biblical application, I feel that the way that we interact with others and the way that we treat and communicate with others is a direct relationship and a direct reflection of our relationship with God. You can't have a relationship without communication. No relationship thrives without communication. You can't have a relationship with God or with the Lord without communicating with Him. You can't have a relationship with your husband, with your friends, with your family without communicating with them. So I really think that our communication with others is a direct reflection of the Lord's work within our own hearts and our own lives. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and I wish everyone the best of luck at the end of the semester.